This is a question I get asked sometimes, is I know I want to talk about dying, I need to talk about dying with this person I support, with the people I support, but how do I do it? How do I start? What is my way in? Where do I talk about dying? And, am I even the right person? Is it right for me to talk about it? And so those questions sound as if talking about dying is a big thing. Well, maybe it is, but perhaps the easiest way in is to try and make talking about dying part of your ordinary daily dinner table conversation. Drop it into the conversation. I try to do that often quite consciously, where, if there's been a soap on television where somebody has died, we'll talk about it. Say, oh, did you watch that last night? So and so died. That was unexpected, wasn't it? Or, what do you think about that? Or, if I'm walking in the street down the road with somebody and a hearse goes by, I would say, oh, look, somebody's died. That's a bit sad. I wonder who it was. Oh, look, it says mum on it. It must be somebody's mum. That's quite sad for them, isn't it? So, when you see, and death and dying is around us all the time, isn't it? It's just part of life, and whether it's a celebrity who's died or, there's the news. So talk about it, talk about that together, and that gives people a vocabulary, and they then know that it's okay to talk about death and dying, and it makes it easier to then pick that up when something really personal happens. And sometimes people then worry and say, well, they worry that would open a whole can of worms, that if I were to say, so-and-so died on TV, did you see that? Or, when the hearse is going by, for example, that you open a whole can of worms and there'll be this explosion of distress and sadness, because people will then start talking and thinking about their own bereavements, the losses in their lives. In my experience, people will absolutely pick it up. They will say, my dad died. And that's okay. I mean, I in all these many years of talking about death and dying with people, including people with learning disabilities, I have never come across somebody whose emotions were uncontainable. People often know their boundaries, but they are often keen to talk about it. So they will say, oh yes, my mum died, I miss my mum. I often, again, normalise that and very often bring in my own experience. I'll say, my mum died too 10 years ago, and I still think about her, I miss her. How about you? As make it as normal as possible and help people to see that this is a universal experience. They're not alone in grieving and missing people and finding it difficult when somebody dies. And maybe that's the other problem. If you make talking about dying a special thing that needs a special time and a special place and a special person to do it, if, telling somebody that somebody in their group of friends has died, if you try and time that conversation to the appropriate and the right time with the right person, that means you're already distancing them, because you and your colleagues have probably already talked about this. You all know the person has died, and you're the other person in your service, their friend. And so they are missing out on the opportunity to see how upsetting that also is for you. And for each other. So, again, as much as possible, I would just talk normally and engage and involve people and give them an opportunity to be as upset as you are, to talk about it, and also to support each other and to support you. You'd be surprised how able many people with learning disabilities are to give each other and to give you support when somebody you've all known has died. So it's a long way of saying there is no right place, there is no right time, there is no right person. Every time is the right time, every place is the right place, and you are definitely the right person to help people to talk together. So have a go. See if in the next week you can just drop death and dying into the conversation. It doesn't have to be a big thing. just picking up what's happened in the world, or on television, or around you, and see what happens. You'd be surprised, but then hopefully how straightforward that can be.